when you and I were talking and you said that, some women will say like they think men are simple, men are dumb, and she alluded to that, and it reminded me of something she even said during her season, during the episode, and she said when she had that conversation with Lamar, and she was like proud of herself. She says, like, sucking toes is not for me, but that's really good for you if that's good for you. And she was like, and that's how I deal with it, because I don't need to reject anybody. I don't need to be rude. I'm paraphrasing. But at the end of the day, she said, like, but it's good for you. Yeah, I get it. And again, that's the New York in her. That's the New York in her. So I understand that. But it is still sarcastic. And at the end of the day, it's going to come off that way. And if you are constantly doing things like that, those slight sarcasms, those little, light little digs, she did it to you a little bit. Like, I want to help you. It's like, help me help you, because you're not getting it, which is what the undertone of that was. Like she was saying to you, you don't seem to get it because you keep asking me the same question. You're not getting it. So let me help you, like you're slow. No, actually, you're not getting it because you're not answering the question because you're trying to be two steps ahead. And I think sometimes, like, we think we're smarter, so we're trying to be two steps ahead when we just need to be in the moment. Just be in the moment, and you don't have to worry about being strategic. And I think, again, that comes from her line of work, because that part of her brain is always active. Let me solve this problem. Let me solve this problem for him. Let me solve. No, we're just having a conversation. We're having a conversation, Patricia. We don't need you to solve it. I'm asking a question, you answer, and we can just volley back and forth with each other, right? And I think that's where the defensive comes in, because she thinks she has it. No, you don't have it, because now your default way of handling things you don't like comes out, and that's when the little snarkiness comes out. That's sarcasm. Listen, I continue to work on my sarcasm every day. Sometimes I could even be saying something, trying my best to not be sarcastic, and somebody's like, "Ooh, Sean, that's sarcastic," and I'm like, "Ooh, shucks, I wasn't even trying. I wasn't even trying." Because if you're not constantly in a stage of trying to be self-aware, and this is what I want to hit on the point of, and we're not like, listen, I'm not perfect. I got my stuff too. We're just unpacking this interview to kind of get to know her better. So anybody watching, if Patricia's watching, we're not nailing you to the cross. We're not trying to make you a bad person. We're just saying, hey, listen, we saw the interview. Now, this is how we felt. And this is kind of what some of the things that we wished that could have been fleshed out, that, we could have had the dialogue with you on.
100% Sean. And it's funny because we've almost had a full circle moment, because when we said earlier on, I said I do actually understand where she's coming from, right? Because I'm also a problem solver. That's why I analyze relationships the way I do, and then I end up talking to people, and like, that's a little bit of a light bulb moment for me, what you just described, because what you're really saying is, in that moment, I really was just trying to have a conversation. I wanted to have a little bit of back and forth and just be able to see and reason together. You know what I mean? I wanted her to give a push back in terms of, well, I see it this way, but and then I can push back a little bit and see. And as we reasoned that back and forth, I was hoping that we'd get to a good consensus, right? But we didn't get to that place. But it makes it interesting that you've brought that up, because I'm thinking of myself. I'm thinking from a perspective of learning, that sometimes people just want a conversation with me, and my conversation will end up being, they talk about a relationship, and I'm like, let me solve this motherfucking issue for you. Let me solve the conundrum, okay? I've got the X, Y, Z for you, okay? I'm going to algebra this out, okay? You ain't about to suffer here. I'm going to Pythagoras this out, okay? All right? We going to work this out. Trigger this, okay? That's because that's what problem solvers do. They're always in a space of problem solving. And we speak about men. We talk about men sometimes in this space as well, where women come to us and tell us their situation, and our first thought is to solve the issue. And sometimes we get told they don't want this issue to be solved. We want to have a conversation. So it's a learn for myself, even learning through her situation, that I need to be more aware of that sometimes it's just a conversation. You don't need to solve the issue, right? Because my natural brain is always thinking, solve the issue. There's a problem there, solve it. But that's because you're uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable being in spaces sometimes when I hear a conversation. I'm like, you ain't going to solve this? You just going to leave it like that. You're just going to leave the algebra on the screen like that. You ain't going to solve it. And I get itchy, because what's happening is, oftentimes You're not validated by standing still. This is what I was talking about in my therapy session. A lot of us don't know, a lot of us were never validated for standing still as kids. We were never validated for just being ourselves. So you have a problem because you always need to solve something, because that's where you get your validation from. If you solve the equation, you get the applause. You get the validation, you get the well done, When really and truly, there's people out here who grew up in houses where their parents validated them without having to do anything, simply because they are their child. And so when you get to sit down and just be able to be, I can't sometimes just be because I'm trying to solve something, because in reality, something in me is saying, solve the issue. And it's subconsciously rooted. So when I do it, it's actually a validation mechanism. So when I do it, it's like, I solved the issue. Yeah, man. I don't literally do that, but it's like, yeah, I've solved it. Subconsciously, I'm like, yeah, I've solved the issue. Of course, that's what I do. I solve issues, bro. I'm the guru when it comes to relationships. What are you talking about? Don't put a thing near me. I'll solve it. But in reality, all you're doing is invalidating the other person, because that's not necessarily what they always wanted, right? Sometimes they don't want an answer. And I've been in that space too. Sometimes I don't want an answer. So, you, Sean, we've spoken recently. I don't want an answer. I just want you to hear me out. And then when I finish, yeah, give me your wisdom. By all means, tell me what you think, whatever, et cetera, right? But absolutely, I think that's what I saw. And because she did highlight there was some, I'm going to say I don't even like saying the word trauma, but let's call it trauma. There were some issues with the mum, which I think is fair. Everyone has these issues with parents. Like, a lot of people have issues with parents. She's closer to her dad, but had issues with her mum. And what she did highlight, and I didn't even go deeper into it, and this is why I love, being able to have these kind of conversations. If you go back and listen to it, the portion where she speaks about her mum, what she said was the issue was she can never really speak up, right? She can never really express herself, right? So this is really important. When you're not able to express yourself, I always tell people, when you're unable to express yourself. For her, she went to problem solving. I also went to problem solving, but in different ways. I chose a different avenue of problem solving. We're in the same boat, but also as well, there's a hidden anger that also often tends to be there. A hidden anger and frustration for her, but for mine was disappointment. Where I went to was I internalized it and made it disappointment. For her, there's a hidden anger there, which is actually behind hurt, right? Not being able to express yourself for such a long time. There's a hidden pain that I think that's behind that space. And that's what that's what comes out, right? And that's also what's going to come out in me. And it won't come out it will come out in my expectations of people. I will lower my expectations for people. No. I said this in my therapy conversation. I said the reason why I'm late, I now know why I'm late, because I don't think people I don't value my own presence. So I believe that other people don't value my time either. So naturally, it's subconsciously working. That's why I'm late to things, personally. For me, personally. It doesn't mean for everybody. Everyone's had their reason. That's for me. So, when she mentioned that unable to express herself with her mom, I said, that's something there, man. Do you know what I mean? And of course, that's a tough thing to go through. I've been there myself, when you're shut up in your mouth, and so you have to find other ways of being able to communicate and express yourselves. And sometimes problem solving becomes a way of expressing yourself. So actually, if I tell her not to solve an issue, she's going to feel like she's being muted, and that's going to be frustration too. Go for it, Sean.
It's so interesting, right?
I can still hear him. I'm just going to grab some water. Go ahead. I'm still listening.
Yeah. I think she missed the opportunity to engage in more dialogue with you versus try to solve the issue, and just allow you to explore, ask questions, maybe challenge her a little bit in terms of her perception